All right. Hi, even day. I am going to give a quick presentation on a poem in order to show you what I expect you to do and your group to do for the poems that you will be assigned in just a minute, or sixth period that you've already signed up for, from The World's Wife by Carol Ann Duffy. At times I'll step out of the presentation and just kind of mention what I am doing and what I hope for you to do, and hope to do even better than this quick presentation here. So bear with me. Take notes, not necessarily on the poem, although I hope you do that as well. But take notes on what the presentation covers. So Salome is the poem that we'll be reading today, and Salome is the daughter of Herod. She is most known for her pivotal role in the beheading of John the Baptist. So let's start there. Some biblical and historical background for you. John the Baptist has become an important Christian saint. He was a Jewish prophet living in the wilderness. He is known for living simply, eating locusts, preaching of God's judgment and the coming Messiah, and baptizing his followers in the River Jordan. So he also is best known for baptizing Jesus. So John the Baptist, John the Baptizer, he baptized Jesus. Herod imprisoned John the Baptist because John the Baptist condemned Herod's marriage to Herodias, his brother who died, his brother's wife, so the widow of his brother, who was Salome's mother. So John the Baptist condemns this marriage, and Herod obviously does not like that. So he imprisons John the Baptist, but he doesn't want to have the popular prophet killed. John the Baptist had a large following. Herodias, on the other hand, did want John the Baptist killed. So she convinces Salome, her daughter, to dance before Herod and his guests, and to get Herod to agree to giving her something. And so this is exactly in the story. This is what happens. Herod says, "I will give you anything for what must have been one brilliant dance." Salome demands the head of John the Baptist, and although reluctant, Herod was forced by his oath to have John beheaded. Salome then took the platter with John's head and gave it to her mother. This may sound a little familiar. So the name Salome, just a few facts to clarify. The name Salome is not actually used in the Bible, but is known from the Jewish historian Josephus. Another interesting fact, Oscar Wilde wrote a play about Salome in which she's presented as being in love with John the Baptist, and the play ends with with her being executed on Herod's orders. The speaker of the poem, Carol Ann Duffy's poem Salome, more closely resembles Wilde's Salome than it does the Bible Salome. And Salome, for some reason, I mean, maybe it's just this compelling story, but really throughout Christian art has been a popular figure, so a popular subject to portray. There's something fascinating about her story. So Salome by Carol Ann Duffy. Here's some information just to recap Carol Ann Duffy, some context of production and of our author that you might want to remember if you were to go forward and analyze this poem. So The World's Wife was published in 1999. That's where this poem is found. During the third wave of feminism, sex-positive feminism is included in this. So it's in direct response, sorry for that typo in there, direct response to patriarchal control of sexuality. So in Salome, we will see feminine promiscuity, and this perhaps is influenced by this sex-positive feminism. Duffy had knowledge of the Bible, remember, from her religious upbringing, but she did reject Catholicism. And here, as with other places of The World's Wife, she's irreverent as she deals with biblical characters. And we can talk a little bit more about that later too. So diving into the annotations, I'd done it before, and doubtless I'll do it again, sooner or later. Woke up with a head on the pillow beside me. Whose? What did it matter? So I'd done it before, I'll do it again is a colloquial saying, usually when talking about vices. This I'll do it again makes us get the sense that this happens often. and this woke up with a head on a pillow beside me. Whose? What did it matter? Again, it just portrays Salome as someone who's sleeping around often. She's a bit heartless here because she can't remember the names. It's conversational because it seems like maybe the reader is asking whose, and she's responding with a question of her own, like, who cares? What did it matter? Moving on, good looking, of course, dark hair, rather matted, the reddish beard several shades lighter, with very deep lines around the eyes, from pain, I guess, maybe laughter, and a beautiful crimson mouth that obviously knew how to flatter, which I kissed. Colder than pewter. Strange. What was his name? Peter? So here we see the first hints that something is wrong. There's a reddish beard, matted, crimson. You have this pewter mentioned here, that it colder than pewter, so another hint of the coldness of death. Here, deep lines around the eyes. Here she says from pain, I guess, maybe laughter. Again, just showing kind of a heartless attitude here. These end stops up here create rhythm until this enjambment, which obviously knew how to flatter, and then is immediately slowed by ellipses to slow the reader down, kind of like thought. And then you have the pewter and Peter, so kind of playing around here with this slant rhyme. Then she continues in the next stanza with Simon, Andrew, John. These are other disciples' names, which makes us wonder if she's done this before. Is she suggesting she's been with other disciples? Remember that disciples were commoners and would not have been in the same circles as royalty. And of course, as followers of Jesus, they were supposed to be living simply and chastely. So there is some provocation here with mentioning even just the names of the other disciples. So I'd feel better implies maybe she felt bad, but then right away we are, corrected from perhaps our assumptions of best intentions, because she talks then about physical needs like food, not that she'd feel better in her conscience. So I'd feel better for tea, dry toast, no butter. So ring for the maid. Tea, toast, butter, and maid. These are ringing for the maid. These are all things that may sound like Downton Abbey, but not ancient biblical times. These are anachronistic. So we'll take a look, if we were to go a certain route in our analysis, we might analyze that more closely. Many of you will probably see that in your poems also, these anachronisms that don't fit with the time period where the figure is set. Maid hints that she is aristocratic. It just reminds us that she is royalty. There's this interesting part where she says no butter, so there's this element of self-denial, even though everything else we learn about her is this self-indulgence. And moving on, indeed, her innocent clatter. She's now talking about the maid's innocent clatter. Innocent connotes naivete and implies that Salome is more knowledgeable, more worldly. It's from her perspective, so it could be that she's looking down on the maid. This regional patter portrays the maid as simple. And then also in this section, innocent clatter of cups and plates, her clearing of clutter, her regional patter were just what needed. Hungover and wrecked as I was from a night on the batter. That repetition of that hard consonant sound, that consonance, it imitates the clatter, is possibly irritating Salome. Batter here could either refer to drunkenness or physical abuse, like being beat up. Which would give a different perspective on her, what we've come to find out is her eventual, severing of the head next to her. And then we have the next stanza start, never again. It's a quick and drastic shift, perhaps caused by watching her maid. She's kind of shaking herself out of it. I needed to clean up my act. She is resolving to live the straight and narrow, but which is, cleaning up an act is a colloquial saying, but it might also be playing with the meaning of cleaning up her act, because she is going to actually have to clean up the blood, which we'll find out in just a minute here. Get fitter, cut out the booze and the fags and the sex. Just a side note, fags in this case is cigarettes. It's a word for cigarettes in the UK. We have polysyndeton here, which really gives this effect of cycle. Like this is her norm for her, the booze and the fags and the sex. It's just one thing after another, kind of going in a cycle. And then that's followed immediately by yes and a period and a full stop there. The caesura in the middle of the line to show that she's pausing, perhaps to process and plan. Yes. And as for the latter, it was time to turf out the blighter, the beater or biter who'd come like a lamb to the slaughter to Salome's bed. So continuing on with this chunk here, turf out the blighter turf out means to remove. So a person who's regarded with contempt, imitation. A blighter is a person who's regarded with contempt, irritation, or pity. So she's saying, no more drinking and smoking and sex, and I'm going to put this aside. Here, the beater and biter, are we wondering, did this man beat her? Is this an act of revenge, the violence that we come to find out has occurred? Is she justifying what she's done? We also have this repetition of the b sound, and this is a plosive, so it's a poetic device that uses short, sharp syllables to create an energetic bouncing phonetic effect. The blighter, the beater or biter. And then finally we have this who'd come like a lamb to the slaughter to Salome's bed. And popular in Christian imagery is this idea of Jesus as the sacrificial lamb. And this is clearly done with some intention here. So a lamb to the slaughter, to Salome's bed. Now the bed is a sacrificial altar. It's a little, irreverent and perhaps even sacrilege, and emphasizes her evil, that she is bringing these innocent men here to be sacrificed, so to speak. So in the mirror, I apologize, this right here is a typo. In the mirror, I saw my eyes glitter, which conveys happiness. I flung back the sticky red sheets. This is almost like a surprise, like a trick here. And there, like I said, an ain't life a bitch was his head on a platter. So, couple things here. We have the happiness element. It's like she's also like she's looking at her true self in the mirror, despite what she said about resolving to clean up her act. She sees and acknowledges that she has no intention really of that, even before she flings back the sheets. And even before, again, she flings back the sheets, she says the sticky red sheet. So there must have been some awareness of there being some act of violence having occurred in the bed. And there, like I said, an ain't life a bitch was his head on the platter. So bitch is a derogatory word for a female that in this case is used to describe the death of a man. It's also making light of his death. Like this is a saying like, yeah, a response, ain't life a bitch. It's like she's peeved that she didn't meet her goal, but she is by no means remorseful or repentant. And this, like I said, brings us back to the doubtless I'll do it again sooner or later. Kind of like she knows that she'll go back to it. So it's this cycle. It might also be a reference to that turf out the blighter, which upon first reading, perhaps we thought she meant just giving up sex. But here we see that maybe she means killing the blighter after having her way. So that is the end of Salome. Some observations. Salome is a biblical character, but the persona adopted here, as we see it through the anachronisms, is that of a wealthy and promiscuous modern woman. Observations. In the Bible, Salome is manipulated by her mother to dance for her stepfather in order to ensure the death of John the Baptist. So again, just a messed up situation for Salome, being used really as a pawn here to cause the death of someone. In this poem, Duffy rewrites her as the one in control. Well, in control of everything except for her own vices, which perhaps she doesn't even want to control. But she flips the script, rewrites Salome as kind of the archetypal promiscuous womanizer. The man is often seen in that role, and now Salome is taking that cold, callous role, but of course taking it one step further in the beheading. So I expect you guys, that was going through, you know, the annotations. We've had background, we've had annotations, and now we're going to go through stop bad fit, which is something that I would like for you and your groups to do for your poems. It's just, again, serves as a nice checklist so we remember what we should look at, and make sure there are no holes in our analysis. So I'm going to go through this really